Hello, everybody, and welcome back to another episode of Motivate with Coach Camp. I, of course, am your host, Coach Camp, and we are down here in the elaborately exquisite studios of SRP with Mr. Derek Michaud. Well, here we are. We find ourselves going into another week where I think it is important for maybe take a step back, to reflect on some things, and to put together a solo episode. And, you know, so often with my solo episodes that I will put together, I do view myself as somebody that should be a little bit of a thought leader. That requires me to be very self-reflective and critical at times to myself and think about where are some areas that I could probably use a little bit of advice in, or maybe I could use some perspective. And it became pretty easy to figure out where we were right now at this point in time in our life. As we are filming this, it is July. And in the last week and a half, 2 weeks now, actually 2 weeks, our country has experienced some very dramatic moments. I think that's fair to say. We've witnessed a former president nearly get assassinated. We've seen a current president decide not to run again, which hasn't been done since Lyndon B. Johnson. These are very historical moments. I don't think I have to mention that to anybody to kind of sell you on that. The one thing that I feel like is really difficult to do is to walk and balance a line to where a message can be heard and needs to be heard by a multitude of people, and you don't cross too far in a way that becomes offensive, creates polarization, creates division. So that's why I really debated if this was the right message, but I think it really is, and I think it's the right time for it. And so for this week, I put in there, Politics versus Perspectives is going to be the title of this whole thing. And just like Johnny Cash, I am going to try to walk the line. But the line is not going to be what you may think. So I'm going to ask you to stick around for a minute. Don't tune out. Don't start scrolling. Don't just run down the road and be like, it's stupid. This might be something you could use. And if not you, maybe you know someone that could. So I'm just going to ask you to stick around with me just a little bit. Here's some of the things I have to say. If you don't agree with it, that's fine, because I think that's a big part of this as well. So when I was reflecting on what it is that you would think of if you said politics to a person, people always talk about, there's two things you can't talk about, politics and religion. And that also got me to thinking about some things. And I was like, well, why is that? Because one, hyperbole, polarization, vitriol, angst, division, manipulation, hate. Those are the words that come to my mind. I just jotted them down quickly. And I said, why is that? Why is it when you talk about certain topics, those emotions get solicited? Those thoughts start to stir. And then with just a little bit of reflection, it started to come to me, and I wrote this down. Because we as people have an inner craving to belong. We are tribal by nature. We want to find our team, so to speak. And then we want to be animate about that team. We want to surround ourselves with members that we associate with, that we reflect with. And so that creates this ideology or this thought process of what is most important. And we start to prioritize certain things. And I think that's a big part of why I thought this was important. Because what we've seen just in the last 2 weeks, as an example, is a situation where sometimes we get so caught up in a moment, all we can think about is how bad that moment is. That kind of hit with me. I do it too. I'm just like everybody else. I'm not different. So it takes a lot of personal, I would say, self-discipline to not allow yourself to overreact to stuff and to kind of reflect on what it is that's so important to you that you would want to act out about certain things. So here's what I've got. I think you should be strong in your convictions. I think you should have a mindset that you know what's important to you, your family, to your life. And then I thought about, well, why does these feelings sometimes lead us to helplessness and hopelessness? Well, here's why. One, when you're strong in your convictions, you suddenly that becomes part of your identity. Second part, the mindset. When you have a certain mindset, you have a lens that you see from. And sometimes it's really hard to see it from a different lens. And it doesn't matter what someone else says or how they say it. You can only see it the way you see it because that's the only thing you know. And that's how it's been ingrained in your mind. And the feelings of helplessness and hopelessness, that comes from a lack of feeling of control. So whenever another person sees the world differently than you, and you can't seem to get them to understand why you see it the way you see it, that can make you feel very helpless and hopeless because you don't know where to go with that. So why? Why are we this way? Well, there's only one way Coach Camp knows how to put stuff together. And I did spend a good bit of time reflecting on this, running and thinking. And it's no surprise to any of you out there, I'm sure that if you know me, that I'm going to use a baseball analogy for this. Look, let's face it. If you've played any sport, it doesn't have to be baseball. It could be any sport, but we're going to use baseball as the exact analogy for myself. In baseball, you have the coaches that lead the players onto the field to play the game. Now, depending on what team you're on, the whole goal is to win the game. That's what it should be, at least at a certain age. But I think the bigger picture to me about baseball has always been the personal growth that happens with each game. The goal is to win, but there's a process there. And I think there's a lot of value when you lose, if you lose with perspective. I'm not saying anybody goes out to any game wanting to lose. They shouldn't. But ultimately, it is our moments of failure that we will grow the most if we're paying attention. And you don't become a victim of something. And you don't feel like that the situation was lost. Because, see, a lot of times in my life, personally, I became a better person in a moment of failure or setback. But it was only because I was very intentional about my next approach. Because it's not always what happens then, it's what happens next. So looking at this from the perspective of politics, I thought about it. And, you know, it's very obvious. I don't think this is not revolutionary profound, but it's very obvious that depending on what side that you align with, the views, the perspectives, the policies, etc., it can be very different, drastically different. Well, that's kind of like a coach. Coaching methods, whoever the coach is, and in this case, we'll just say politicians in general, not just the top of the food chain here, but politicians in general tend to be like little coaches all over the place. Well, the players tend to be the civilians, the citizens, if you will, like myself. And ultimately, what the goal should be of each of those coaches, whether you're a mayor, a governor, a senator, the president, should be to put your players in the best position possible to be successful. That should be the goal. But I'm going to tell you something. What I've witnessed personally, I know you have too, is that it doesn't feel that way. It doesn't feel like that the coaches have the players' best interest in mind. The coaches only have winning in mind. And I've played for those coaches. And those kind of coaches only want to win at all costs, and they don't care what it costs them. They don't care. And ultimately, who suffers? The players. Even when your team wins, when you win in a way that is detrimental, it doesn't really create growth, nobody wins. This is, I don't know, man. I don't know if this is profound or not. My mind circles sometimes. And whenever I really pause, I hit the pause button and I think about how we got to where we are in life and what we're doing and what I'm doing and what my perspectives are. What got me to that place? Well, I can tell you, I'm going to use teams now. I'm going to use a couple teams. For those of you that have known me any length of time, I am a die-hard Yankees fan. New York Yankees. Love them. Grew up loving Don Mattingly. My daughter's name is Mattingly. It's probably sick. I probably should get help. And because I'm a Yankees fan, I'm predisposed to not like the Red Sox. It's just true. You're not supposed to like and if you're a Red Sox fan, you're predisposed to not like the Yankees. It's just the way it works. But you know what's funny about that? When a game is on, and if I have friends around me that are Red Sox fans, or maybe they're at home and they're just texting me, giving me a hard time if the Yankees, Red Sox are playing, I can get animated and I can be passionate. And my convictions are definitely that I want the Red Sox to lose. Because I always have two favorite teams, the Yankees and whoever's playing the Red Sox. As any Red Sox fan probably has two teams that they like, the Red Sox and anybody playing the Yankees. But you see, that's where perspective matters so much. Because, see, I'm all in on the Yankees winning. I am. But at no point in time do I want to see the Red Sox hurt. I don't want to see their players hurt. I don't want to see damage happen to the organization. It's almost like this. You need that competition so that you can sharpen yourself to be better. And if you want to just have weak competition, you're not going to be stronger. So looking at the Yankees and the Red Sox rivalry as such, any Red Sox fan can and should respect the Yankee players, even if they don't like the team. Because me, as a fan of the Yankees, I can respect the players. Well, don't you think that that's how we should see things in America? Don't you think that that's how we should see things in politics? You know, I don't have to agree with somebody else's perspectives and views. Disagreement should not equate to hate. Where does that come from? Social media, the media in general. They have villainized the idea that seeing something differently means that you must hate them. You're some kind of, you're some kind of title. They're going to give you some kind of label because you don't agree with something. I don't see life that way. But what I do realize is who has the most control of a game? Well, you would think the coaches, but the truth is it's the players. The players have to play the game. The players have to take the field. It's the leadership and guidance of a coach a lot of times that will put the players in positions. But the players still have to play the game. So if we're using this analogy as an exact scenario, we are the players. We have the control. So when you see all of this conversation about politicians bringing together unity, if you're truly thinking that the coaches are going to be the ones responsible for bringing unity to the players, you'd be sorely mistaken. I would say I would completely disagree with that thought. It's not going to be them. It's going to be us. It's the players. At the end of a game, players walk across the field, they shake the hands of their opponent, and they tell them good game. Now, have I been a part of games where the other team was a sore loser? Maybe they had bad attitudes. Maybe they didn't walk. Yes, of course. But what I'm challenging you to do is what I'm challenging me to do. Be the change you wish to see. Do the Michael Jackson song. I'm talking to the person in the mirror. I said man in the mirror, but men or women. I'm talking to the person in the mirror. We have to be able to allow ourselves to be the thing that we're supposed to be in society, even when it's the hardest thing to do. So why give this message? Well, I'm going to be honest with you. If you're going to be a motivational speaker, if you're going to be somebody that has a positive message, you cannot shy away from difficult conversations. You have to be able to have difficult conversations. The other side of this is, within those difficult conversations, you need to gain something from that, some version of perspective that you can use. And so that's what I'm hoping I can do here, because I think sometimes it's so simple for us to get caught up in a moment, like I was saying, where it's so overwhelming. We feel helpless. And it doesn't matter which side we are, because I promise you this, in November of 2024, a big part of the country on either side is going to suddenly feel helpless. They may feel angry. They may feel lost. Let's just be honest. But this is where we could start to make a difference. Don't allow yourself to be sucked into the anger and the hate that others like to spew. Don't. Be the person that you want to see in the world, because guess what? Those politicians out there, they're not going to know your name. They're going to live their whole life. They're going to die. They're going to never know who you are. Do you know how much influence you have? Unless you go into politics yourself, vote. You go to the voting booth, you vote. So why is it that we feel compelled on social media or in person to create these polarizing moments of conversation that heighten and ultimately leave everybody mad? You don't convert anyone that way. You don't convert somebody to seeing life like you should see it or hope to see it. What you end up doing is you create division. I wrote some of that stuff down. In the perspective of life. But before we get there, I want to hit on this other point real quick. Finishing up on the analogy of the Yankees and the Red Sox. This rivalry has been around over a century. And to think that the Red Sox would disappear tomorrow or the Yankees would disappear tomorrow, I think would make baseball less interesting. I think we need each other in that respect. And what hit home for me was how much you can not be a part of another person's thought process or ideology or desires or team, but you still care deeply about them. 9/11, for those of you that are over 40, probably very vividly remember 9/11. It changed the world, but it specifically hit New York City. And what I saw was people from Boston showing New Yorkers love. Boston team showing the Yankees love. And then that was reciprocated when the Boston Marathon bombing happened. New Yorkers stood strong with Boston. And there's something beautiful. Something beautiful about that. I think that's something we can all take. We can have our convictions. We can have our beliefs. And we can believe so deeply in who we are and what we are and why we're that way that you won't change, and that's okay. But you should never devalue another human being in the process of your convictions. See, Boston and New York, they've been rivals since the beginning. But they understood what was most important. They had perspective. So let's talk about that real fast. This is going to be a short episode, but man, I wanted it to be powerful. I wanted it to be reflective. And I hope I'm doing that. Maybe I suck at this. I don't know, but I do feel very convicted by this conversation right now. And so that's why I'm doing this. So the perspective of life and what really matters, right? Politics will not bring unity is what I wrote down. Perspective is what can bring us together. Disagreeing should not equate to hate. Those are the quick notes that I made. So let's flip, because I don't usually do a lot of notes, but I didn't want to miss the mark on this stuff right here. The inability to be able to disagree is a lack of growth. When I wrote that down, it really did strike me as something that I've been so guilty of so many times. If you cannot disagree with somebody openly and you cannot have a conversation about something, you're never going to grow from the place you are. Because see, growth is always going to happen. Either one, you're going to grow to a different direction in the idea that you're going to understand that perspective better and maybe you adopt some of those thoughts. Or two, you're going to strengthen your perspective from the beginning because you've had to think about why you feel the way you feel. Arbitrarily having thoughts and feelings does not equate to an actual conviction. That's just an emotion. And so often we get those things confused. We are very emotional to something, but we're not convicted by it. See, a true conviction allows you to dig deep into why you believe that. And whenever you take away something that could be a force that is disagreeing with you, you don't allow yourself to do a deep dive. I think that's very important in life. In every aspect. I don't care what it is you're talking about. It doesn't have to be politics, it could be anything. But whatever it is that you decide, this is my line. This is who I am. This is my identity. This is why I'm the way I am. You shouldn't be put out if somebody challenges you on that. You should allow yourself to be challenged. Because if it's not worthy of being challenged and it's not worthy of your time to reflect on it, then maybe it's not worthy to even talk about. I don't know. It's just me. So as I said, I've got to be the change that we wish to see in this world. Thinking about how I was going to approach this, I didn't know how the words would come out. I didn't know if it would sound right or not, but the past 2 weeks really, it left me feeling like if I'm having a lot of these thoughts and these feelings run through me, I can only think that so is most everyone else. And it's so easy to get caught up in our moment. And so that's why I really want to point this part out, that we think that where we are right now is going to be so much different or so much worse than it ever has been. But the truth is we've only lived in this moment. I mean, even if you're 100 years old, you've only lived in the 100-year span. In this country, in this world, it's been around a long time. You know, I reflect, I think about, what if social media was a thing during World War II, World War I? What if social media was a thing during Vietnam War? What if media, TV, phones were around during the Civil War? What kind of home footage would you have of armies, of your people, your family members possibly, marching across the field to kill one another? You know, if ever there was times in our existence to feel helpless and hopeless, I don't think this is the time. I think if you really stop and reflect, millions of Jews being killed in World War II, tens, hundreds of thousands of Americans killing Americans during the Civil War, the Revolutionary War, the fight for our independence. Look, I'm not some kind of historian, read the same things, seen the same documentaries that maybe many of you have. But what I have been able to do is try to gain some perspective to our moment right now. So no matter where you fit into this equation, dealing with the politics of today, I don't want you to feel helpless, and I don't want you to feel hopeless, and I don't want you to feel polarized. I want you to feel encouraged, because what we have at our disposal right now is the same thing that brings us down that could bring us back up. I chose a little over 3 years ago to be a positive voice. Is it always easy? No. I have reactionary moments. I've been very open about my lack of ability to control my anger on the road when somebody cuts me off in a moment. Something I'm working on. But I really do feel like if we use those tools that are at our disposal right now for good, I'm just a voice of one, okay? It's just a grain of salt on a table, nothing. But see, that's the point of this message. That's the point of this platform. That's the point of this podcast. That's the point of Coach Camp, was to try to be a positive voice for others, to encourage other people to get on Team Camp. As I've said so many times before, so many times, my title is Motivate with Coach Camp, because I need you. And that's what I am asking you. That's what I am challenging you to do, is to be on Team Camp right now. Be a positive voice. As we go into these next couple months, it's going to feel tough for half the group of people across America. There's going to be vitriol. There's going to be anger. There's probably going to be riots. Let's not let that be us. Let's be the positive voice. I have seen more and more, and by the way, there's going to be poisonous seeds. It's not like you're going to be able to eradicate it. That's not going to happen. But every single positive voice that's out there is one more in the right direction, and that's what it takes. And to be together as a unified group, that is what we can do together. That's what we can do together to make a difference. And since I've started doing this, whenever I have those folks that are always negative in nature, they start to fall off of my feeds, because all I do is click on and like and share other people's positive stories. And what I found is there's a whole lot of people out there that want the same thing. They want to live a healthy life. They want to live a productive life. They want to be important to the people in their circle. They want to be an example. And you can be. But sometimes you got to take a step back. And that's what I had to do. Because it was easy to get aggravated by everything that you see going on in the news, social media. It's not hard. I don't have to tell you that. I don't have to tell you it's hard at times to stay positive. That's why I chose this. It's in my very first episode I ever did. Go back and look at it. It's over 100 episodes now. Go back and look at my first episode. I said I chose positivity because it's hard. Positivity is hard, but it's necessary. And you and I can do this together. So here's my prayer. I wrote a list of things. And this is what I'm praying for myself. And this is what I'm praying for all of you out there. I'm asking that we be quick to listen and slow to speak. And if you don't think that one's hard for me, you don't know me. That one's really hard for me. Be quick to forgive and slow to chastise. Be quick to relate and slow to condemn. Be quick to patience and slow to haste. Be quick to understanding and slow to anger. Be quick to love and slow to hate. And be quick to compassion and slow to persecution. Focus on balance of reaction and emotion. So we all have the power to overcome the temptations of poor decisions and actions. Stay intentional and focus on God. People, all I can say is this. You and I, we can only control ourselves, our own actions. We may want the best for someone else, but you can never force that on them. But what you can do by leading by example, by making the right choices, by doing the things that others will see as a positive light in this world, you will have influence. Be careful with those people that influence you. Know that it takes an intentional approach every single day you wake up. And if you fall off and you find yourself straying, hit pause, hit reset, and go back to the starting board. Because the truth is this: every day we have a new chance to be better. Every single day. Don't lose the moment. Life is too short. It is too important. Your voice is important. I know that we can do this. I'm asking you to stay the course. Stay the course, baby. Continue to believe. Believe in God and believe that everything we do on this earth has a purpose. Because whenever we start to share that with other people and other people start to feel our message and they understand that what we're doing here matters and the next generation is only going to be influenced if we are willing to do the things that are hard and to continue to focus. I promise you it will be worth it. So please continue to tune in, continue to watch. Go to my website, motivatecoachcamp.com. Subscribe to my YouTube. And until next time, Coach Camp out.
I love the chase and the hunt, and I set the pace when I'm running. I always take what I want and I always give it 100. Don't need a bank, no I'm funded. Play the game like it's nothing. I'm always thankful for something. Don't take for granted, stay humble. Now wake up! It's time to look at the enemy. Look in the mirror